Good day all. Today's talk is on David Hume by myself, and it's for History of Economic Thought Scholar Profile. So today's talking points, we're going to run through who David Hume was, his famous work, his greatest influences, a very special friendship in history, and also his contribution to the history of economic thought. Firstly, David Hume was born on the 7th of May in 1711 in Edinburgh, Scotland, and also died on the 25th of August in Edinburgh at the age of 65 in 1776, which is the same year that Adam Smith published his famous Wealth of Nations. David Hume was a Scottish Enlightenment thinker, philosopher, great historian and essayist, and a major contributor to 18th century Western philosophy. David Hume is regarded as one of the most important philosophers to write in England and is most famous for his philosophical ideas on empiricism and skepticism. Hume went to the University of Edinburgh to initially study law at the age of 12, but while at the university he was greatly influenced by philosophical works by Arnold Phineas, Johannes Voet, Cicero and Virgil, so he never graduated in law. Famous works of David Hume, firstly, is the Treatise of Human Nature. This is an attempt to introduce the experimental method of reasoning into moral subjects. The Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding is an attempt to define principles of human knowledge. And then an Inquiry Concerning the Principles of Morals is where Hume wrote most of his philosophy regarding morals and the foundations that, as he stated, that lies with sentiment and not with reason. His History of England publications, as stated, he was a great historian. He wrote in 6 volumes from the Anglo-Saxon period to the Revolution in 1688 about England's history. Greatest influences by Hume. Immanuel Kant praised Hume for his positivity and stated that it awakened him from his dogmatic slumber due to their common influences in the field of speculative philosophy and directed him into a whole different direction as a whole. Secondly, Soren Kierkegaard, which was a Danish philosopher, adopted Hume's view by stating that reason is not to make us wise, but to reveal our ignorance. Arthur Schopenhauer stated that there's more to be learned from each page of David Hume's writing than in the collected philosophical works of Hegel, Herbart, and Schleiermacher taken together. Albert Einstein himself in 1915 wrote that he felt personally inspired by Hume's positivism when formulating the theory of special relativity, which we are all familiar with. His contribution to economics was applauded by Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Adam Smith himself, which acknowledged his contribution to economics as a study. This brings us to one of the fateful friendships regarding Hume and Adam Smith, that they were friends. There's a book by Dennis Rasmussen, The Professor and the Infidel, and the main sort of idea was, or the notion was, that Hume was more radical, as sometimes he would challenge the church, so on, and Smith was more of a conservative professor type of scholar. There are also talks that Adam Smith wanted to dedicate his Wealth of Nations to Hume, as Hume came to die in 1776 when Wealth of Nations was published. Hume's contribution to the history of economic thought was firstly that he criticized mercantilism with Smith. They had a very similar stance on mercantilism, where Hume also said that he actually introduced the notion that wealth does not consist of money or gold or bullion, as the mercantilists were obsessed with, but of commodities and trade with Smith. So we can conclude that Hume was also quite a free marketeer with Smith. He stated that low interest rates is not a symptom of abundance but of booming trade. Hume was also the first to welcome advancement beyond agriculture to an industrialized economy, and even went too far to state it as a precondition for industrialization. Uh, Also important to note that Hume had considerable influences on Smith's Wealth of Nations, and Smith also on some of Hume's work. That concludes the presentation for today. Thank you very much for watching.